So it's great to be with you guys. Guys, full house. Good to be with you guys. Welcome. Everybody doing okay? Yes?
Yeah.
Lou, you doing all right? My gosh, things must be really changing if you're in this house. Everybody know Aaron Pearson? All right, if you don't know him, Emily, you should know him. He's a good dude. We've gone through a lot over these many years. He was right there when I was prospecting FSBOs. Remember those good old days? Yeah, good times. All right, well, good to be with you guys. Hey, so just a little bit of just about today's, there's a number of different things that are going on, right, with the market. There's a number of things that we're doing differently within the company. Wonderful to see many of our seeing Orem and Centerville guys and gals in here. So thank you for being here. Love it. Got to acknowledge my beautiful wife there. There she is. You're sitting next to her, Tyler. You should be more excited. You got to figure that part out. All right. All right. So just you know, as I was thinking about the market, look, you start looking at different things that are going on, and you start wondering, okay, what is the factors of the market? How will it impact us? How and what will those changes? And I'm having a lot of conversations individually with people when they come and sit down with me. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that I had an individual, 2 weeks ago, come in and visit with me and said, hey, you know, this is going to seem crazy, but I've been in this business for 6 years, and I have actually never officially had to get a price reduction. In fact, Lindsay, you and I were talking about this just this last week, and I thought, man, that is a profound statement, not because there's a criticism to him, but so many agents have never really seen the changes that have gone on in our market and the number of reductions that are happening and how to just manage through today's market, not only from a listing standpoint, but even the changes you're seeing on the buying standpoint are uniquely different, and the way in which people are approaching it. But the one thing that I have found that seems to be the common thread in good and bad markets is the realization that I've had in regards to these last nearly 3 decades is 2 things. One, each one of you individually needs to do something great for your own life. And that has always been kind of my saving thought in the midst of change. And that is that an individual agent whose dependency upon their career and their future, their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, the most sacred things of their life, the things they want, that even though they may have a hiccup, a bump in the road, or a 90-day little little off track for a moment, realize, whoa, what's happening here? It seems like every agent gets on track. And I mean, many of you were there right in the beginnings of Everest 14 years ago, by the way, which is crazy thing. 14 years ago, as of last week, May 27th, was the anniversary of Everest. And many of us, as we were working and we were prospecting and we were, you know, I remember watching people. I still will never forget Jessica Terry, who had moved from this corner office over at Coldwell Banker, overlooking the entire Wasatch Front, probably the exact same view that you all get to see because I face it, my back. And when you sit in my office, you get to see it. But she's sitting there overlooking, and she comes to Everest and she stands in a cubicle, and this is not exaggeration, in a hallway. And I've always thought about that. And I thought, like, looking at the things that we do when we all come together and we do the things that we do together, there's a unique culture and environment, I think, just to Everest. I think that it helps people shape their lives they want them to be. I think it helps them earn money and do business in difficult moments and difficult markets. And I think that it's a real special place. So again, I love the excitement, the energy, the enthusiasm of Everest. And I look at my own history of all the different things that have occurred and gone, man, there's a lot of things that have changed and happened and have come about and that I've improved in my life just because of all of our association with one another. So I'm just so grateful that you're here. But I want to just echo again that you each have dreams and goals. That's the first thing I always count on, that you're going to chase them and that you want them and that you want to achieve them. The second component is this: no matter how bad or how good the market is, but let's just say if the market's getting a little bit difficult, and let's just say that it is portraying that it's going to, well, then what does that look like? Well, what I've also known is that even in the most difficult moments, if people can quiet the noise around them and they start focusing on the right stuff, they start to realize just a couple of things. And that is that real estate will still always be sold in good markets and in bad markets. And what I mean by that is this, is that people, and it's not, this isn't a new concept to almost any of you here, but I still will never forget the time that I was on the street walking our dog, and I had a good friend across the street when Jennifer and I were first married, and I just gotten into real estate. And I still will never forget the statement that this good man, this good friend of mine made. And he said, hey, what are you going to do when rates go up? You really need to do something different with your life, because you never know what that market's going to do. Now, I've told that story. I mean, Brandon Lee, you've probably heard that 50 times from me, but it's a reminder to me that this is what will always happen. And that is that divorces will always happen. Death will always happen. Or let's put first-time home buyers will happen. I know that people will get job transfers. I know that there will be job promotions, even when there's a bad market. There's parts of our economy that are flourishing. I mean, be good to work for Zoom when you were in the midst of COVID, right? I mean, divorces, death, first-time home buyers, job transfers, job promotions, investors, right? And you start looking and say, okay, wait a second here. So is there a major problem with the market, or is the major problem me? And one of the questions I've often asked for years now, probably 2 decades, at least for 14 years running Everest, and that is, did you get better or did the market get better? And that's the big question to ask yourself. In the last 3 to 5 years, with the market being what it's been, were you really as good as you think you are? Or was it just that the market was so good? Because what is indicating of that is that so many different platforms in real estate have fallen to the wayside and are starting to be absolutely brutalized economically, because the system that they've set up does not work in bad markets. And you see that where Zillow losing millions and millions of dollars when they did their little, instant offer thing. You look at Compass that says they have to raise another $200 million. If they don't raise it, they're going to go under. You look at Homey laying off multiple people. You look at Redfin, I think maybe is in their second bankruptcy. You start looking at all the different factors like, oh, wait a second. You mean if the market isn't raging, these things don't work? The answer is they don't work in rate unless it's a raging, white hot, incredible, insane, never seen before type of markets. And so you start to have to recognize and ask yourself, man, is it the market that was so good, or was it that I was so good? Now, what I hope from some of you in this room, which I know is the case, some of you are really good at what you do. And some of you, though, have created some patterns in the way in which you operate and do your business that are probably not going to serve you moving forward. And so although there will always be death, divorce, first-time home buyers, investors, job transfers, and all the other things that happen, the fact is that if you don't get better, this market will gobble you up and it will spit you out, and you will sit back and go, well, I just got to wait for the market to be better. And if you really just grasp this idea, that you have 2 distinct jobs in your life. You have the job of real estate, but you have the job of working on yourself. And if you will work on yourself harder and more than you even do at your own job, you will never wonder where the next dollars will come from. And some of you are focusing on the wrong stuff. You're focusing on rates, you're focusing on mortgage programs, you're focusing on a bad deal, you're focusing on a difficult moment of a difficult transaction, you're focusing on what other agents are doing who are not winning, who are failing. You're focusing on all these different things that oftentimes may not serve you. And I would just ask you to pay attention to what you're focusing on, because if you aren't paying attention to what you're focusing on, it is unlikely that if you aren't conscious of it, it is unlikely that you're consistently focusing on the right stuff. With me? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So with that, I just want to make sure you focus on the right stuff. And so one of the words that has been in my mind for several days now is this, and that is the word patterns. And what I've realized that, look, after nearly 50,000+, it may even be more than that, 50,000+ times I've sat down one-on-one with agents. 50,000 plus times I've sat down with some of the most unproductive human beings in real estate and some of the most amazing people in real estate. And I have been on both sides of it. And then I've obviously been to every event it seems to be known in regards to real estate. I've listened to every speaker, every coach, every self-proclaimed guru who says they figured it out. And I just have to say that I'm thinking that there's some patterns that I have figured out that I know work every single time in this business. And I've realized that those patterns are the things in which we operate our lives by. Look, you have a pattern to how you bathe, you have a pattern to how you put your clothes on. Just ask yourself, which leg do you put on first when you're wearing a pair of pants? Right? See, the thing is we seem to be in these patterns. Now, if the pattern's serving you and you're getting dressed well, don't worry about it. You don't need to change that. But there's parts of your life that you gotta ask yourself, is the pattern in which I'm operating right now giving me the best results that I want out of my life? Now, look, it wouldn't be Everest if we didn't say, well, that certainly applies to your business. That's the obvious, whether I'm Jim as a loan officer, Ron as a loan officer. But the fact is that it's bigger than that, right? It's not just your business. There's patterns in your life that you move to and that you go to, that you resign yourself to. There's emotions that you resign yourself to when things get frustrating. There's patterns of activity that you move to when people do certain things, say certain things, and things happen around you. And so again, the most important thing I could echo to you, that when there is a transitional market like there is, and to me, there's only 4 types of markets. There's markets that are going down, there's markets that are going up, there's markets that are flat, and there's markets that are transitioning. And the most difficult markets in today's world are the markets that are transitioning, because people aren't quite sure where they're going. And people are asking, like, well, why did you do this? And why did you change things at Centerville or Orem? And well, why are you doing those things in California? And well, wait a second, I hear you're selling this. What do you know that I don't? Pretty much nothing. I mean, really, other than I don't want you to buy stupid things. So you can write that down. Don't buy stupid. You finish whatever you want at the end of that, but don't buy it. Right? Don't extend yourself out economically when you don't need to take particular risks. Get more concerned about your financial well-being and your freedom than you are about looking rich. Right? Get serious about how you're approaching your personal life economically. And my whole point is that I'm looking at those things and I'm asking myself, what do I value most in my life? And having been under such bondage at moments in my life economically, and the things that I've done and the things I've built and decisions that I made, that some of them were good, some of them weren't so good, is the one thing I'm unwilling to ever give up is freedom. It is the one thing that is most important to me. And if you've never lost it, well, I lost it when I walked through TSA with a loaded firearm, and it was a great day in jail. And I realized in myself, that is not how I want to live my life. So you haven't heard that story. And you haven't heard that story, have you? I'm walking in TSA and I hear someone whisper. I'm like, of course, me, impatient Wanda, going, come on, why is this TSA taking so long? And the lady comes and whispers over to me and goes, hey, just so you know, firearm in your backpack. I'm like, oh my gosh, Jennifer, just kidding. We just got back from a trip from Lake Powell, and of course, I thought that something was going to attack me in the middle of the lake. So I had my firearm, of course, in my backpack, and decided I'd take it down to St. George, where I was supposed to speak for a summit. If you haven't heard the story, I did not make it that day. And there's so many comical things about that whole thing. I'm not thinking much of this, and they like, well, we have to take you in, and it is. They've changed it now, fortunately for Jeremy Leggear's sake, just might I add. That you don't have to actually spend a day in jail. They just tell you to go take the firearm back out to your car, or you can't get through. And anyway, so I spend the day in jail, but I will never forget walking into the police station I need
the mugshot.
There's a story there too, by the way. Jennifer knows. There's a story all about this thing. I view this might be purely entertained, that, you know, if my day wasn't going so well that day. So there's a story behind that, by the way. I'm sure now one of you are gonna find it somehow, some way, right? But
How long ago?
how long ago? What are we talking about? 5 years ago? I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, something like that. I don't know, 6 years ago?
How come we just heard about it?
What do you mean? Haven't heard about this?
I guess I gotta come to some more.
That's right. No, hold on. So, okay, hold on. I'll tell you the story. So I walk into the sheriff's department. She goes, I'm not even gonna handcuff you. You know, I'm dressed in a suit. I'm looking just like that fine young man over there, Mr. Austin Kales. I am dressed to the hilt. I am looking good, right? And as I walk into the sheriff's station, the sheriff, the head of the department, screams and says, "Why is he not in handcuffs?" And so anyway, they put me into a hole. She just looked at him and ignored him literally, which was actually to her credit. She was quite nice to me, by the way. In fact, I after I was out several weeks later, because I was traveling to the airport, I actually saw her on the side of the road, and I pulled over. I kind of probably scared her just a little bit. I said, "I just want to thank you for treating me very nice when I was going to jail." True story. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And she was actually quite nice to me. But so I go in, I'm sitting there, and I hear him calling like the FBI, and then they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "Oh, okay, what?" "Oh, well, we need to take you down to the Salt Lake City Metro." And I'm all, "Metro, like Metro jail?" He goes, "Yeah, you can't get out until the Attorney General kind of signs off on this thing and blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me, right?" And they're like, "Nope." So handcuffed, put in the back of the squad car, and I'm sitting there looking at Welfare Square and looking at the haunted house thing, and they get off the exit, big gate opens up. How many have been there? Don't answer. Don't answer, Zach. Matt, come on. All right. So I walk in, and then they handcuff me to this railing, and I'm thinking, okay, there's not very many people down here, Michael. And I think I'm doing okay. And all of a sudden, man, they start pouring in the prostitutes, the domestic violence, the meth addicts. I mean, they start pouring in. But of course, I had collar stays, and that was a very big weapon, Wanda. So they pulled those from me when I walked in, and they took my tie off of me, Austin. I couldn't wear that because I might have done something with that. So I'm wearing the white suit and I walk into the holding cell, and there's a group of all of these guys down there, and I'm walking down there, and they scream out, and they're like, "We got a Mormon! We got a Mormon! Let's go!" Wearing white shirt, suit, and I'm like, "You got to be like." Does anybody like want to know anything about me? I swear a lot, just so you know. I don't swear from the stage a lot, and if I've disappointed any and all of you, I swear a lot. In my mind, in my head, and if no one's listening, a lot. Just so you know, a lot. I say a lot, you have no idea, I'm like, a lot. Okay, I figure it's better than punching someone in the face. I might as well say a few things under my breath, in my head. Okay, so I'm down there, and of course, I still remember his name was Richie. And Richie was loaded up on meth, and they started calling his name, and I had to knock him. By the time the thing was done, I was running the show. If you can imagine, I knew all by name, and I was telling them what they needed to do, and they kind of organized a gang, and we were ready to defend ourselves. Finally, they call my name. I get up to the thing, and they're like, "Occupation," and I go, "CEO." "Of what company?" And then I say Century 21, and then she literally starts laughing. She laughs like out loud. I said, "Are you laughing at me?" And she's like, "I'm sorry." She goes, "I know you're not supposed to be here. So whenever I see this stuff happen, it's really more comical to me." And so she started laughing at me. And anyway, I go down, and I'm able to make my one call, just like the signs say. And so I make my one call, and I make it to Jennifer. And this is the worst part about this. She answers, and it says, "Collect call from the Salt Lake County Metro." And I'm thinking, she's not going to answer this. And she answers it, Lindsay. And she answers it. And she's like, "Hello." And I said, first words I'm up, "Why would you answer this call?" Because I'm hearing it go, "Collect call from the Salt Lake County Metro's jail. Da, 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 da. You do not have to. If this is a harassment. Da, 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 da." I'm like, And she's like, I thought it might be your brother. I'm like, true story. Anyway, I got out. I have a picture of, I should show you one day. And they kept me in there all day just because they could. I got out, and fortunately, the Attorney General dropped all the charges, turned into a infraction, and the rest is history. So I know what it means, at least for one day, to lose your freedom. All right, I'm just saying, Jim, one day was enough. And let alone, financial, has anyone been under financial bondage, right? Where you can't move left or right. I mean, where you don't know what's going to happen. Some of you are lying, but that's okay. You're not saying you have been, but I'll tell you, those have been some of the hardest and darkest moments. And so for me, people are asking me like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Or why am I selling this, doing that, maneuvering this, changing the platform here? Because I feel very impressed and strongly to do so. And I will never stop reminding people that your job as a parent and a leader and an agent and a salesperson, whatever you want to call it, is to protect, to teach, and to inspire. And I would just tell you, I hope that wherever you show up in your life, that you're protecting people, protecting yourself. And I have a job, right? It's to protect this organization and to protect the people in it and to protect what Everest is. And Everest, at least as far as I've concluded, isn't necessarily the brick and mortar that we operate from. It's the people that are here and the unity that we have and the lives that are impacted because of who we are. And boy, if you're a parent, which many of you are, have influence on a child, I don't think there could be a better thing in your life to do, but to teach them and to instruct them and to help them. And then hopefully inspire them to live an extraordinary life. And I would just tell you that is something that today I was with my own coach and I got a little choked up when I talked about this idea of protection. And although sometimes those moments of protection aren't the best ones, like people don't always agree with them, right, Wanda? Just kidding. She loves me still, I hope, right? But just the changes that we make, right? From offices to brick and mortar to where you're located to, I got a kick out of Cody Emery yesterday. He said to me, well, good luck. He goes, I'm sure you're stirring the pot with all your information, all that you're doing. I said, I am. But I just hope that you know that everything that we're doing, I hope that you'll do this with your clients as we move through these things. I hope that when you show up at a listing presentation or you're working with a buyer, that they say, gosh, that was a different presentation than most people gave. I would hope that when a Tyler's doing a loan for someone, that it's a different experience because he truly realized, he helped them understand how much he's trying to protect them and teaching them. And so they're inspired to move forward, whether it's home ownership or maybe it's your own child and maybe it's just yourself. I hope that you get that, because the one thing that I've recognized in this business is that there's not a lot that's changed in it. There is the thing that's really fascinating to me, that with all the technology that's available, all the access points to what's available, it still has come down to just a handful of things that you still need to do every day. Hence, I talk about these patterns. And so if maybe the last 3, 4, 5 years, or if you're newer into the industry and you saw that it was very, very simple or easy for a period of time and it's changed a little bit, I would just challenge you to say, man, what are the ways in which I'm moving through my day? And what are the ways in which I'm moving through my business? And there's always 3 questions I'm always going to ask any single person. If I sat with them one-on-one, then I will maybe say it in different ways, but these are the things I'm asking. I'm asking basically, what do you want and why do you want it? I'm really interested in that. And I'm really interested as to what you're doing with your time, because time is our most precious asset and we don't get it back when we use it. So 1, thank you for being here with me. And number 3 is, okay, what are your challenges? And then of course, then we move into solutions. What are the solutions? But most of you know a lot of the answers. So the one thing I've appreciated in the most difficult moments that Everest has ever been in regards to difficult markets is that it's provided a pathway that when things seem strange, hard, difficult, or off, and the market seem different, that you figure out that there's a pathway to getting there. And some of you may be lopsided on one way of your business, but man, nothing would make me happier than seeing a good balance to your business of both buyers and sellers. And in today's marketplace, one of the most important things that you could do was get really clear on what your expectations and your outcomes are in regards to what you want your business to look like. And some of the very first questions that I ask an agent is, Tell me a little bit about how your business is structured. And if it's lopsided massively in one way or another, you should take a step back and say, okay, hold on a second here. What do I want my business to look like? I got to have enough vision to say, all right, what do I want it to look like? And if I want it to be comprised of both buyers and sellers, well, then I got to spend time doing both, not just one or the other, and not just running ragged in one way or the other, because both of them are very, very important. When the market was crashing back in 08, 9, and 10, 11, man, buyers were such a critical component to your success. I mean, a buyer was a guaranteed sale. A listing was nothing but, man, heartache and agony, because you never knew if it was even going to sell. Whereas if you have somebody who really wanted to buy, you had your pick of the litter. And on the flip side, we're seeing where it can be a little more difficult on the buying side, more than it has been certainly in the past. And then you gotta ask yourself, okay, wait a second here. Do I have a good balance to my business? Do I have a focus point also on taking listings? And no matter who the buyer's agent that stands in front of me, I'm always going to tell you, no matter if you say I'm a buyer's agent, folks, I say you need to spend at least 1 hour a day working on trying to take a listing. At least 1 hour a day taking a listing. That is a critical component to your success. You control the listings, you control the buyers, you control the market. That's what ends up happening. So as you move through your career, look at the patterns and the way in which you're building your business, right? We all know that there's going to be buyers and sellers. So what are the patterns in which you're working your business? Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Mary's making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. At least 1 hour a day in listing. Now, some of you will spend more. That's great. But no matter where you are, an hour a day, attempting, striving, trying, whether it's the door knocks, whether it's some phone calls, maybe it's calling your sphere, but your focus is a list. Take a listing. It's a critical part as you move through this business and learn this business, master your craft. Okay, we're gonna switch gears. So years ago, I was sitting in my driver's seat, driving down the road. I had Ashley and Mackenzie in the back seat, and Ashley and Mackenzie kind of asked this question together. They kind of went through it and they said, hey, we have a question. And one of them said, we don't get it. And I said, well, what don't you get? We don't get how it is that you have been so successful and yet you didn't go to college. I'm like, and I started laughing. I thought it was actually quite comical, actually. How many of you have a college degree? Interesting. Congratulations. That's awesome, by the way. Kenzie is one of the people who raised her hand, by the way. Okay. You know what? For me, that wasn't necessarily the path. And this isn't about, formal education. That's not the message. The message is this: whether you have your degree or you don't, early on in my career, I made a decision that I would do this one thing. I would master the ability to communicate. Now, 29 years of marriage, I still have not perfected that. I just want you to all know that. That was clear yesterday. At about 11 freaking o'clock at night, clear. Same. Okay. Is that not true?
That is true. You did not.
I was unclear of how to communicate properly at 11 o'clock last night, Ron. So I figured it out. Okay, but I have made it my absolute obsession to learn how to communicate, because as much as each one of us are in this real estate industry, whether I'm Isabel and I'm in lending, or sorry, in title, or these guys and others in this room are in mortgage, or you guys selling and helping people buy and sell real estate, you're in the people business. And once you begin to recognize that, you sit there and say, man, have I really committed myself to understanding from human psyche to mirroring, matching? Have I figured out really how to communicate at the absolute highest level, to where my closing skills are off the chart, my presentation skills are off the chart, my ability to set appointments is off the chart, to where no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, no matter what this market's doing, you are not of this philosophy. And that is this: I hope that the home sells. I hope that I set an appointment. I hope that the buyer wants to buy something. I hope I can make my payments. You say, well, is hope such a bad thing? It is as a philosophy for business. It is for a philosophy for business that when you are hoping, you've missed something. See, I'm never in question as to why a home hasn't sold or not sold. And really not in question as to why someone didn't get the home or buy the home. It's not about hope. It's about the fact of what are your skill sets and the relationships, the amount of people you're speaking to, talking to, and how are you moving through this business to where hope doesn't have to be your projection out there. See, what I've always found interesting, and hey, I'm a God-fearing guy, but I'm sitting there going, well, one guy and gal, or maybe a couple or whoever they are, is praying they find the right home. Oh gosh, let us find the right home at the cheapest price, please. Guess what the other couple who's selling the house is asking? I hope we can sell this for the most. Oh God, please let us sell it for the most. So whose prayer is going to be answered? I'm just curious. The one who wants the cheapest, the one who wants the most. And they're all hoping. Okay, again, I'm not saying that prayers aren't answered. I think that they are. I think that you're known. I think that this universe is built to provide and to give you everything you desire. But what I also know is that if you build a platform for your business based on hope, you're going to have you know what handed to you. So get really serious about what it takes to win in the game of real estate, and that you don't just wait for business to happen, you go out and make it happen. And the one thing I have prided ourselves as an organization is that this organization is about going out and getting business, not waiting for it. And if you go out and get the business, right? I can see the big smile on like a Lou's face. I mean, your first year in business, how many homes did you sell, Lou?
Together, like 56.
Right. Yeah. And I say that from the standpoint that you were a new licensee. Yes, you had family members, Vivi and others that were in the business, or Vivi was in the business. But my point is that the one thing that got you that business was what? What was the one thing you consistently did?
Donna.
Hello, she door knocked 56 homes. And I don't know if you realize that, but we all have an accent. She doesn't. I'm just pointing that out. And yet, what could possibly be your excuse? If you know her real story, from refugee to learning the language, to you name it, and all the tragedies that have come into her life, it is profoundly amazing. It is incredible what you've achieved. So what could possibly be your reason to not? What have you sold yourself on that you do or don't have to do? What is it that you have done in your life where you sold yourself on? Well, I don't feel like prospecting. I don't feel like door knocking. I don't feel like making calls. I don't feel like calling my sphere. I don't feel like, doing whatever it is this business requires. And then you ask yourself, oh, what are rates going to do? That means nothing. What matters is what are you going to do in the process of all of this? And if you figure that part out, man, you will never look back in good markets and bad markets. Lou?
I just want to share a story with you. When I first started Donna, the first month, I got a guy, came, slammed on my door, told me, go back to your country. And he said, I can't understand your language. I can't understand what you're talking about. And then I turned around and I flipped him off. He said, if you were going up on my home again, I will call the police. And I flipped him off again, and I told him to call the middle finger. And then from there on, I told myself that if I got from where I was, from Vietnam to Philippines as a refugee, eat once a day, I conquered the door knock. And so I door knock, some of you don't know, but I door knock 100 homes in 1 hour. And I door knock every single day to the point where I was door knocking like left and right, and I picked the worst neighborhood to door knock. Like I door knock Magna, Rose Park, Kern, you know it. It's because those are the population that was underserved. And I knew that I could do much better than any other agent. I would be more gentle to the seller. And most of my first year was listing. I did only, I think, 10 buyer. Most of it was listing. And I took 7% listing with $9.95. And I did it so much to the point where I know every single street. And there was sometimes that I even have 3 listings on a row on the same street. Because I came back several times. I work with some people who even like 6 months, come back to the same street. And even today, I don't know. Like, the property I told you, I don't know. That's how I got it. And so if you thinking like the power of just sit around waiting and hoping that's what you say, it's not gonna happen. There's no such a thing as premium.
Yeah.
You gotta get your ass out there. You gotta do it.
Don't flip anybody off. Just saying. Okay. All right. Other than that, love it. I'm distracted. You know what? It is inspiration. I can feel your emotion. And one of these days we need to hear that whole story of just to your point of Vietnam to the Philippines to here. And frankly, all of the things that were against you to where you are today is pretty magnificent. So truly honored that you're here. So.
And we need to make coffee money.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, Michael. Jennifer saw that text, by the way. She was laughing at that. All right. Okay. So here we go. So patterns, as you can see, Sterling, you need good patterns, right? So patterns, whether it's door knocking, phone calls, talk to people. I want to just mention just a few things in regards to just prospecting. And it's been something that I was talking to Matt Clark not too long ago about. But look, I'm really interested in this word right here. Meaningful, and I'm going to put the next one up here. Conversations. My gosh, am I saying conversations? Just ask yourself, how many of you are you really having every single day? If you're not having meaningful conversations with people, it is again unlikely that you are having success in this business. If your focus is coming down to, well, I made 30 contacts or 20 contacts, 10 contacts, and your focus point becomes contacts, I can just tell you that often can be a great challenge, because the problem is that you'll get exactly what you wanted. You want 30 contacts, you're going to get 30 contacts. So there's 3 things I want to focus on for just a moment in regards to just the rules of prospecting. Okay. And I remember this years ago that this was so impactful for me that I realized I needed some better rules around my prospecting. And it's a simple thing, but it's a great reminder. I just want to write this up here. And I've said this, and I can't even remember which coaches. If you're in here, I apologize, but just remember the mother of memory is repetition. But this is a very timely message in regards to the rules of prospecting. And that is this, that let's just say it this way. I will contact. Oops, you know what? Scratch out contact. I want to do it in the right order. Hold on. Sorry. I will prospect blank hours a day. Now, look, as a general rule, I believe that every agent who wants to be highly successful, when I say highly successful, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 plus hours needs to happen. So that's your first rule. 15 plus hours. Oh, sorry. Glad you guys are here. As you know, I didn't graduate from college. I can't spell. All right. 3 plus hours a day, 15 plus hours a week. All right. Or, okay, rule number two is I will make blank. I'm going to put here, I haven't used it this way before, like when I write these rules, meaningful contacts a day. So what is that number? I would argue that it needs to be 30 plus, depends on your goals, right? I'm just, you can put whatever number you want. This applies to, I don't care whether you're an agent or a loan officer or I'm entitled. It all is the same answer, right? And the third is I will set, oh, sorry, put an or up there, right? We got the or. I will set blank number of appointments. Now, again, a day. For me, it was always 1 plus. And people say, what if I don't set it? That's the point of putting it there. It's not only an affirmation, it's also a goal, it's an objective. But I always say, people say, well, wait, what if I don't set one? Well, then you'll reward yourself with the other parts of the rules. And if I had my own team, if I really was like sitting there as an Austin or a Zach and others, or an Alan and Fernando, I'd be sitting there going, okay, everyone, you got to either, prospect 3+ hours a day, or you got to make 30 plus contacts, or set 1 or more appointments of new blood, not resets, not the person who flaked you out and you reset. 1 plus appointment per day. And all of a sudden, if this became your mantra for the entire week or days, again, you're never going to worry. Just want to do some math for you. Just look, 240 work days in a year. This stuff starts to apply when the markets make shifts. 240 work days in the year. That means that you get nearly 2 months off to go do the things you love to do. But if you just set 1 appointment a day, obviously that's 240 appointments. If you go on if you attend, and it doesn't matter whether, again, I don't care whether it's a buyer or seller, I'm not dividing them. You attend at least half of those appointments for 50%. That means in a given year, you're going on 120 new appointments. And if I'm just okay at what I do, I will either list or get buyer broker signed on again, another half of them, which means on 60 of them. And of the 60 that either qualify or we list, we know that we're going to sell 80% of them. Well, then all of a sudden, if we're going to sell 80% of them, we take and that means we're going to sell, give or take, around 50. It's 48, I think, to be exact, but 50, and 50 times the average commission of $12,500 is well over $600,000+. So I sit there and go, what's wrong with you? Why are we all not doing that? Oh, because I don't feel like prospecting today. Well, so when people sit down with me, so that no one's unclear how much money Matt Clark's going to make this year, $500,000, Lindsay, if you weren't aware. Anything less than a half in the next 12 months is not okay, right?
By the end of the year. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, by the end of the year. Yes, forgive me, because we're starting.
7 months.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks. We're on track.
So people will start scrutinizing this stuff and think it needs to be more complicated. It is not more complicated than this. I used to say that if you're making less than $250,000, I just know that you have patterns in your life that you completely talk yourself out of what you know you should be doing. And so therefore you don't do what you're supposed to be doing. Then therefore you don't make the money that you want to. There's nothing magical about that. Okay. And then the last thing I want to finish on is this. Is this helpful?
Yes.
Guys, there's no one that should be poor in our industry. But if you have a place of coming from this business from a place of I hope, you will be poor. And some of you are like, well, I can't figure out why this isn't working for me. Then I'm going to come over to you again and go, could you just tell me really quick, what are you doing with your time? Well, I'm doing this. Okay, well, take all that away. How many people did you talk to today? 6. Well, how many people? But I was so busy. My emails. Everything else under the sun. And then I said, well, how much prospect yesterday? Well, I didn't have time because I was taking all these flyers. Okay. What about the day before? Well, yeah, I was able to I really killed it. I made 12 contacts. Guys, that is the life that I sit down with when I'm sitting down for the 50,000 plus times one-on-one with agents. That's the stories I hear over and over again. And then they ask, I can't figure it out. Well, it's pretty simple that if you will reward yourself with one of these 3 rules every single day, that you prospect 3+ hours, if you will make 30+ meaningful contact, if you will make 1 or more appointments a day, you'll never worry. And you will be reliant on no one but yourself. Yes, call your net leads. Yes, call just listed, just sold. Yes, call your sphere. Sometimes people want to try to corner me and go, well, who should I call? As if like one is more worthy than another, the type of lead source. It doesn't matter. And lose the idea of the nonsense that a particular script is the one of all ones. It's nonsense. I can set appointments with any script that you give me because it's all nothing to do with the words. It has to do with your energy and the emotion and what you bring to the script. It always who you're being is more important than the script itself.
One might argue that if someone's not willing to do the prospecting, they don't have their want and why set up yet. They don't
Totally.
understand what's driving them. And so I would take them back to square one. If you are not prospecting, it's because you don't know who you are yet. And you need to figure that out first and build that foundation.
Yes, I agree. And then on the flip side, I would say you find that out if you start to realize that you're prospecting, all of a sudden you become anxious, angry, fearful. You're pushing against it. You're trying not to do it. And you all of a sudden it brings you back to saying, yes, why am I doing this? What's important about doing this? So I totally agree, which it goes back right over here. Like, what do I want? Right. Discipline and desire go hand in hand, right? Heather, we talked about this, but when you have a very high discipline, it's because you want something. How many of you are going to go knock 100 doors an hour? Only if you want something, Miriam. Only if you want something and you know why you want it. So Heather, you're spot on. Remember that when you find yourself anxious, depressed, stressed, doubting, fearful, resisting, it's because you cannot see clearly that when I do this, it equals whatever that why or want or desire is. High desire always fuels high discipline. Low desire, like, it's not really that important to me. Yes, guess what won't be important to you also? Your discipline. They go hand in hand, okay?
When I first started, Rick told me, like, if you have a goal, and my goal was to make $100,000. And you said, you just listen to what I teach you, and you do it every single day, constantly. And you just remember the script, you study it, and you just go back and practice, you will make $100,000 in a year. Because that was my goal to pay off my student debt, was $100,000 and get the shit out of the state. But I did it in 3 months.
I remember I met you, you said, I only want to do this for a few years, then I'm done.
1 year.
Oh, there you go. 1 year. I thought a few. I'm an agent, though. I exaggerate everything.
1 year. And what he said is correct, because if you follow the system, like, and you just trust in the process, and when you don't know what you do, and just go out and just pick up the freaking phone call and make the move. Just like your goal don't have a feeling.
Yeah.
You always need to remind yourself the goal doesn't have a feeling. It doesn't care if you are sick. It doesn't care if you don't feel like it. It doesn't care whatever it is. If you focus on what you want and your goal, and you believe in the system that they teach you, and you believe in the broker, then you will be successful. Like, you will be so successful that you don't want to get out of real estate.
Yeah. Somebody want to get out now that you're in? Just wondering, right? Don't tell me that. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Lou. Okay, just real quick. I want to remind you, guys, this is just a reset. This is the stuff that I would do in my journals over and over and over again. Reminding myself, what's my job? What's my job? What's my job? Yes, protect, teach, inspire at a high level global view of your life. Absolutely. But we get into some micro of like what this business is. I just want to remind you that 80% of your time should be spent in these following activities. And just as a reminder, number one, of course, that is to do lead follow-up and set appointments. One could say, well, that means prospect. Yeah, prospect, but also your leads, right? 80% of your time, lead follow-up and setting appointments or prospecting. Number 2 is to present, right? To present presentations to both buyers and sellers. I mean, in today's world now, man, there's a lot of times where you're having to present to a buyer, but you got to be a master presenter, right? Master the ability to present. Be so good that people are drawn to working for you, working with you, right? Number 3 is price reductions. The ability to get a price reduction. Number 4 is to negotiate a contract or contracts, right? To negotiate contracts. And 5 is to work with, and I've always loved this part of this statement, highly qualified buyers. Now that's not a new concept, nothing new, but here's what seems to always be new. 80% of your time and 20% of your time doing admin, which would be, right, all the paperwork, all the other stuff that's there. And the thing is that I know, again, the patterns I've seen over the last almost 30 years of my career has been the fact that this is flip-flopped. And that agents spend 20% of their time in this stuff and 80% of their time fiddling around. You may say, well, it's really important fiddling. I'm sure it's a great tune, but it doesn't make you enough money. And you don't get to live your dreams, like Heather said, when you're disconnected to them. And oftentimes people get disconnected to them because they realize the only pathway to getting there is to do a lot of things that you make you really uncomfortable. Just remember, most of you live your life based on this. Do people like me or not like me? People will say the highest human needs. It's been said that it is number 1, will I be loved? And number 2, will I be remembered? Meaning, did you do anything great? Let me think about that. So here is your wiring within you. Will I be loved? Will I be liked? Will people appreciate me? And oh, and will I do anything great? Will I be remembered? Does my life matter? And I'm here to tell you that it matters. But I also know that the requirement of that is take a step back and say, wait a second here, what's more important to me? Being liked or being rejected versus doing my job? And here's always the thing I've thought about. We will dictate our entire lives on what people will either say or think. We say, oh, no, not me. Okay. You live in your little fantasy that you think that you don't care for a minute, but I would even tell you, even the best that I see at doing this, that they not that people are angry like, screw you, I don't care what you think. I'm not talking that type of energy either. I'm talking about, can you be in a place of absolute acceptance of yourself despite what anyone else thinks? Just think about that. Absolute acceptance of yourself, love of yourself, love to yourself, despite what anyone thinks. Think of how you run your life, how you optically want to be seen, because you want to be seen a certain way, because you care what people think in a certain way. Now you say, well, not in every area. I didn't say every area. I just said we all battle it, because we're all judging one another, even when you don't think you are, and you want to try to say you don't, you still do. And I guess, can you refocus? Can you say, I'm going to be more curious? I'm going to ask more questions. I'm not going to be so judged. Yes, you can refine your humanity. No question. But what you still have to acknowledge the fact is that how much of your life is being built based on what people think and what they will say. Because if you didn't care what people thought or what they said, then how many doors would you knock on? If you didn't care if people hung up on you, or if they yelled at you or said things like, go back to your own other country or your own country, well, then if you care about that, all of a sudden you get shut down. And all of a sudden you start caring truly the rejection and what people say, all of a sudden it begins to impact the way in which you prospect. Because the noise of and the voice of what you want, and what Heather's even said, what you want and why you want it, isn't louder than the people rejecting you. But if it's louder, what you desire and what you want is far louder than the rejection and what people's opinions are, then you won't care what you do. As long as it's moral and ethical, you'll knock, you'll call, you won't think, oh, I'm above all that. Not above anything. There's nothing proud to be the guy who sits and just waits for business. And when did work become such a problem? And when did work become something you try to avoid, like it's like the plague? When did you want to just sit there? The most dangerous space in a calendar is the white space. It is the devil's playground. Let me tell you something. Stay busy. Do things that are meaningful. Do things that make a difference. And spend your time doing what this real job is all about. Right? Yes, the impact of buying and selling real estate, but if you don't know that 80% of your time should be spent in those activities and you're avoiding them like they're like a bad plague, well, that's a big problem. And here's the other problem. When you don't have any real buyers to work with, like I was talking to Adam over here. You guys remember Adam, don't you, Mr. Pearson?
Sure do.
Okay, just checking. All right. But Adam, when I first was sitting down with him a few weeks ago, he said, man, he goes, I had 9 buyers, and they said, in quote, unquote, quote, they told me to go pound sand, unquote, is what he said. And I say that to you from the standpoint that all of a sudden, well, wait a second, if he didn't have any buyers at that very moment to work with, and if he didn't have any offers to negotiate, and there was no reductions to price, and no presentations to give, is it possible, ladies and gentlemen, that all day today, if you don't have any of those other things to do, that you could spend 6, 7, 8 hours prospecting?
Yes.
I love the enthusiasm. I can feel how committed you are to doing that. Because then words like, I'm not a telemarketer. Yes, you are. I'm not a door-to-door sales. I'm not like those pest control and Vivint salespeople and solar. Yes, you are. Yeah. And here's the thing, you get paid a lot more. You get to have freedom. You get all the beautiful things that happen from real estate. And the thing is that you have to remind yourself that you are a salesperson. Now, you know me, I say the last thing the world needs is another salesperson because it's in such great need of leadership. So the reality is, can you be a great salesperson who leads people? Just as she said, an underserved area of population that she thinks needs great leadership. Did she say it perfectly? No. Was there some challenges the way she said it? Yes, but we're not, I say that to you that, look, it doesn't matter what area when we say bad areas, but we certainly can say that there's more affluence in different areas. And there is more wealth in different areas. And the reality is that you see the impact of that. And it's always a lack of leadership, gang. No matter where you go in this world, wherever there is challenge, it is almost always a lack of good leadership. So do yourself the favor to lead yourself and to lead the people that you have in your stewardship to say, man, will I do these things with my day? And if you do, you'll be the guys and gals making $500,000 or more a year. And you'll do it like thinking nothing of it. And you'll look at others going, why can't they figure it out? Some like I do at times. Like, why can't people figure this out? Why do they create all this distraction administratively and blame all these other reasons why it can't happen when it's all sitting right here? When they follow these rules of prospecting and they know the numbers, that the numbers show that you can do this. I'll leave you with this last story. Are we out of time? Oh, we're out of time, aren't we? Okay, here we go. Last story, but it's a true one. And I'll still never forget it. I remember Jennifer and I were driving along and she said these words. She said, I have to ask you a question. Again, some of you have heard it, but it's so important to me because it helped me realize what was so important about this business. See, I realized I knew how to talk to people. I knew I could talk to people. I knew I could set appointments. And I'm sitting in a stoplight right there over on Highland and Van Winkle. She puts her hand on my hand on top of it. And she said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure, knock yourself out. What's up? Will you promise me you won't be mad? No, I won't be mad. You promise? Okay, I'm getting mad because you're not asking the question, but I won't be mad about the question. Okay? I'm so easygoing, John, I promise. I'm so easy. I'm low maintenance, Michael. I don't even know that. Okay? All right? And so she asked the question. She goes, I've never seen you, and it's a true story. She goes, I have never seen you make this much money in your life. And I said, I just have to ask you, are you doing it legally? True story. Awesome true story. I promise. Just like that. And I started laughing and I said, yes. And she said, I've just never seen you do what you're doing. You've set all these goals. Like, the reason I know these numbers like this and it's because I've written them down so many times, Adam, to go, hey, can I do this? I'm like, I can do this. And I would write these big business plans. And that was the year that she said, I don't know why you don't write something. We're in our early 20s. It's not, she's amazing woman, supportive always. So if somebody's like, wait, is she not willing to support me? She is, but I would write these huge plans and then like, I would never accomplish I'd hit like 25% of goal at best. And so as a loving wife, of course, saying, why don't you write something down that's a little more realistic that you know you're going to achieve? And that was all I needed, Austin. Seriously, that was all I needed, Jim, because all of a sudden I went, what? Realistic? What do you mean? And something turned in me, and I wasn't angry at her. It made me realize that, George, you are a fake, because you can do this for a week or two and you write these big plans of how much money you're going to make. And then you just fizzle because maybe I forget why and what I want and why, like Heather said, or other things. I just got lazy because I started making enough money. And so all of a sudden I started making a thing. I don't care what happens. I will not miss this. And the 3 hours of prospecting was the most important thing. And I can tell you that same year that she asked me that question was the thing that happened. In less than a 24-hour period of time, I had 9 deals under contract. 7 out of the 9 of them went out of contract. And I thought they were unrepairable and never would happen. I mean, how many have had just one deal and you feel a little bit bad about it, right? Especially when you really want the deals. I had 7 out of 9. I mean, I just felt like I got kicked in the gut 10 times. But I kept my commitment. And I remember showing up at the office and I hear this behind me. I'm prospecting. The next day, I'm prospecting. I hear this. And it was Jason Erskine, Brandon, you'd appreciate this, a friend of ours. And he goes, I go, what? I cannot believe you're prospecting. I said, why? Because you just had all of your deals completely fall apart and you should probably be working on them right now. And you're prospecting. I said, and I will not waver from this. And I didn't waver. And here's what is so cool. In that 45-day period of time, I made $95,000. 45 days, and every single one of those deals came back together. And I had prospected, I got my deals, and I got other deals. And it was the year where I finally broke free into the $200,000-300,000 range. And you know, when you sold 50 homes a year back in my day, you made 300 grand. You sell 50 homes now, you make $500,000 or more, at least. But I finally broke free and I realized that no matter what is happening around me, I will not excuse myself. No matter how late I worked, no matter how many offers I have, no matter how many buyers I have, no matter how many listing appointments I have, no matter how much preparation I have, I will not waver from this. And once I figured that out, the rest was history. To where my script eventually became, guys, I mean, Alan, it was this. Hi, it's George Morris. At the time it was Realty Executives. We can say that because they don't exist at all, except in like Phoenix. But I said, hi, this is George Morris, Realty Executives. Just calling to let you know your home recently came off the market as an expired listing. I'm sure you were aware of that. And I'm just calling because I want to help you get it sold. In fact, if you can find any agent in the entire state of Utah that has sold more real estate than me, I will sell your home for free. And they would be like, who are you? George Morris. Because that is the truth. Because years later, because of this, I was able to say that. And you say, well, that seems a little arrogant. It was. I know. And it felt really good. Probably wouldn't say it now. But I got people to call me back when I leave that on their voicemail. Because when the market was crashing, they wanted someone who could get their home sold. And I was ruthless. To some of you, even in this room, by the way. Because I would look up your production and show them right on the screen and go, are you looking for someone to help you just buy homes or sell your house? Because they said that I sold 20 homes this year. Yeah, 1 listing and 19 buyers. And then I got so good that people say, wait, is that your whole office or is that you? No, that's me. That's how many homes I sold. And they're like, oh, because again, that's specifically for me, which turned into these other things. And look, again, I don't care what you focus on. First and foremost, I do care. I care that you focus on your sphere, but make sure you take the time. For some of you, it might be to hit your goal an hour a day, but do not waver from the fundamentals of this business. I have spoken on this now for nearly 20 years. And the one thing I have figured out, no matter how much technology happens, no matter how much efficient we get, these things still apply. And I'm grateful they do. Because the difference is not the technology. The difference is you guys. Individually, when you show up with a buyer or a seller, you are the difference. Okay? All right. Any thoughts? I'll be here for a few minutes. But guys, thank you so much. We're a little bit over, but it's so good to spend time with you. Go get it. Make it happen.